What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and today we're going to look at the deck that gets my vote for the straight-up coolest budget combo deck in all of Standard right now. Here's $25 Powerstone Assembler. Now, that's just what I'm calling the deck, but I've seen this deck called a few different names online. There's a bunch of people working on this concept right now. I've seen the deck called Infinity Stones. That's a cute name. And I've also seen the deck called, at least by one Redditor, CAPS. I like that name. It's an acronym for the two cards that make up the main combo. One, a nearly forgotten common, Cogwork Assembler, and the other, one of the most obviously breakable commons in all of Dominaria, Powerstone Shard. Now, like I like to do with combo decks, I'm going to show you what we're trying to actually accomplish first, and then I'm going to go into the different individual card choices that help support the combo or find the combo or whatever. So, with that in mind, here we go. What we're trying to do in this deck is to get one Cogwork Assembler and 4 untapped Powerstone Shards. Now, wait, don't click away. Don't click away. Hear me out here. It's not as Christmas land as it sounds. We have multiple ways of setting up this situation, so bear with me and suspend your disbelief. So what we're trying to do, again, is to get 4 cards named Powerstone Shard on the battlefield, all untapped, and a Cogwork Assembler. Now, at this point, you can tap 2 of those untapped shards and create a total of 8 mana because all your stones tap for 4 at this point. Now, you funnel that mana into Cogsworth and make another shard. At this point, you have 3 untapped shards, 5 in all. Tap 2 of those for a total of 10 mana. Funnel that mana back into Cogwork Assembler and make another Powerstone Shard. Now, at this point, you have 6 total stones and 2 of them are untapped. You can tap those 2 for 12 total mana. Pool all this extra mana, it really doesn't matter. Just make another shard and keep whatever mana you got left over. But make another shard, you'll have 7 in all at this point, and the one you just made is untapped. Tap that one to make another Powerstone Shard, and now you have 8, and you're generating positive mana every time you make and then tap a shard, and then funnel that mana into Cogwork Assembler. So at this point, you've effectively, congratulations, got infinite mana. And once you do get that infinite mana, you can shift into making infinite copies of Cogwork Assembler, which conveniently, by the way, have haste and can swing right away. And that's pretty much the basics of it right there, kid. All you got to do is just keep copying Powerstone Shards with Cogwork Assembler until you have enough shards to start generating positive mana, at which point you can switch to copying the assemblers and just swing with haste immediately FTW. So it's actually fairly simple what we're trying to accomplish, but the entire rest of the deck is dedicated, for the most part, to putting this combo together. So how are we making it easy to get 4 different Powerstone Shards out? Well, first thing we're going to do is do some tricky stuff. We have at least one thing in this format that helps us copy Powerstone Shard other than Cogwork Assembler, and that's Mirage Mirror, which we'll play a 3 of. Now, even though this can mess with your math just a little bit when you're trying to combo off, it's still well worth being in the deck. It's functionally copies 5 through 7 of Powerstone Shard. There's really not a whole lot else in the deck that we want to copy with this. There's a bunch of other artifacts. There's not many things we can profitably copy with Mirage Mirror, but that said, again, still well worth being in the deck, just because, especially with our 1 color limitation here, we don't have a whole lot of ways of copying Powerstone Shard, so we need to stretch it as much as we can. I think I'll go with at least 3 copies of Mirror. Now, another way we have of sort of making it easy to get 4 shards out is that we can just tutor them up whenever we need them, because blue has a lot of options for tutoring up artifacts right now. Specifically, though, we get Trophy Mage, Glint Crane, and Whir of Invention. I'll play 4 of the Mage, 4 of the Crane, and 2 of the Whir. Now, Trophy Mage is just about the best card in the deck. This tutors up either half of the combo, and if we already have a Powerstone Shard, it can still tutor up excess shards for us. It can get Mirage Mirror if that's what we want, and there's even another artifact that this can go grab for us if we need it. And all that, and it leaves behind a blocking body so that we don't get run over as fast while we're trying to put the combo together in the first place. So Trophy Mage is ridiculous, and we'll play all 4 copies because there's really literally no better card for this deck, so definite playset of Mage. Same thing with Glint Crane, though. This helps fill out the 2-drop slot on our curve. It's a good blocking body, and it flies, so it can block just about anything. And in this deck, we've got like 20 different artifacts. It's almost always going to get some value for us no matter what. And the Whir of Invention is more or less self-explanatory, I would imagine. We're mono blue, we can easily get to 3 blue mana and go get whatever thing we need. This is effectively even more copies of Powerstone Shard or any other artifact in the deck. Again, we're playing like 20 different artifacts in this thing. So this thing can tutor up a lot depending on your situation, but mostly it's just extra copies of shard. That's how you should look at pretty much every single one of these tutors. That's how we're making it so, at least theoretically, easy to get a bunch of untapped Powerstone shards in the battlefield. So we have 10 different tutors that can help us do that. But I keep saying there's like 20 artifacts in the deck, so I should show you the rest of them, starting with the perhaps surprising playset of Prophetic Prisms in the deck. Now I know, we're just the one color, but this actually does a lot. This actually does a lot. Drawing a card is just great for 2 mana in a combo deck. If we're trying to assemble a combo, that's always good. Also, just like Glintless Crane helps fill out our curve in the 2-drop slot. We need an artifact that does that, and this does it pretty well. Not only that, but best and most important thing about the card, I saved this for last. If we're comboing off with infinite mana and we have a Prophetic Prism on the battlefield, well, look at that. We can just draw our entire deck. That seems good if we're looking for a specific piece, which we may very well want to be doing that at that point in the game, you know. Let's say that for whatever reason we can't attack. We can't necessarily attack. Like, we know they have Settle the Wreckage, or we're just worried about swinging in to Settle the Wreckage. That's a very real concern. So let's just assume we can't attack. Well, at that point, we can draw our deck if we have a Prophetic Prism out until we get to the 1 copy of Hierophant's Chalice that we're playing. Now, because Settle the Wreckage exists in this format and so many decks play it, we need a way to win without ever actually having to turn those Cogwork Assemblers sideways. This is a great way of doing it. And there's a few different ways of doing it. You know, Mechanized Production is in the format, but it's actually a little expensive. It's like $3.50 to $4 right now. We don't need to spend that money. Or we could just spend 3 cents on a Hierophant's Chalice and copy it infinitely. Another sneaky way, by the way, that I considered, that I think is actually kind of boss, is just copying Icy Manipulator over and over and tapping all of their lands down. Pretty sneaky, so they can't cast Settle the Wreckage. That's cute. But honestly, Hierophant's Chalice is really probably the most consistent way of actually winning the game without really ever having to declare an attack step. But we're also going to play 4 copies of Renegade Map, like I usually do, in these artifact decks, because it just does everything. You know, this helps out with the 1 improvised card in the deck, helps us play it as early as possible, ups the artifact count for Glintless Crane, that's good, helping us hit more off of Glintless Crane, I want that. You know, there's a few things this card does. It ups the artifact count while lowering the land count. You know, once we do pop it off, that filters a land out of our deck so that we'll be less likely to draw lands when we really don't want to draw lands later in the game. So this Renegade Map kind of does it all, and I don't see any reason not to play 4. But we're also going to play 2 copies of Pacification Array in this deck because it's 3 cents and this is a budget deck. You know, it's an artifact. So all the reason that 1 mana cost artifacts are good, this card is good. Again, helps with improvise in the early game. That's pretty sweet. Helps hit more off of Glintless Crane. I like that. You know, we need our 1-drops. I like that. This is also, though, just a really, really cheap 3 cents answer to big stuff. You know, Lyra Dawnbringer is just going to end the game. If they get to her and we can't assemble the combo, it's just going to win. Same thing with Glorybringer and a bunch of other huge power, you know, fatties in the format right now. So this can help keep, you know, small creatures off your back in the early game while you're trying to get things together if you have the mana. And in the late game, you'll definitely have mana to keep, like, giant flyers off your back. So Pacification Array does kind of a lot in this deck, and at the very least, will lock down big threats. But let's finish the main deck up here with the, I guess, the other category, just the other cards in the deck. Show them all to you right here. We're going to play 3 copies of Metallic Rebuke, 3 copies of Blink of an Eye, and 2 copies of Artificer's Assistant. Now, Metallic Rebuke is a must-play in this deck. I've already shown you that we have multiple 1-casting cost artifacts, meaning that this can come online as early as turn 2, and especially if we're on the play, that's really important. You know, we can counter early creatures that they want to run us over with, or just anything. You know, this can basically be an anti-counterspell card on critical turns. Against control decks, that's important. Countering counterspells, something we really want to do while we're assembling the combo. You know, it can keep cards like Teferi and Karn off of the battlefield, and we really don't have a whole lot of other answers to those other than Blink of an Eye. Now, if we were in any other colors, I would play just about any other removal spell, but this is a combo deck, and we can start comboing off as early as turn 5, sometimes turn 6, very often turn 6. We need a little bit of time and some separation to get there. So I'm not really that worried about killing creatures dead. I'm just worried about getting a tempo advantage in the early game. We can use Blink of an Eye to do that if we've got the mana to do it. But this is also an answer to Karn and Teferi and Chandra and other planeswalkers and stuff. Any non-creature permanent like Godfar's Gift, or maybe, you know, they hit a cast out on a Cogwork Assembler or something. Well, Blink of an Eye can give us our Cogwork Assembler back. So that's all of that is pretty important. And we can also draw cards. Look at that, if we have the mana to do it. And we want to do that sometimes too. So Blink of an Eye is kind of a catch-all, you know. Sometimes it's an early game piece for tempo against aggro decks, and other times it serves more important functions. And in fact, one more thing, it can even save your own guys if that's what you needed to do. You know, if you need to save a combo piece, like they want to abrade a Powerstone shard at a really terrible moment for them to have that idea, well, Blink of an Eye can at least pop the shard back to your hand. And there's going to be a lot of cases where you can, you know, tap the shard before it comes back to your hand, and then you'll just have the mana to play it over again. But the 2 Artificer's Assistants, you know, combo deck wants to fix its draws as much as possible. This helps with that for a very low investment. And, again, flying, blocking body when we need it to be in the early game. If we just want to throw a body in front of aggro to help mitigate the bleeding, this can do that too. So there are some cool things about Artificer's Assistant that I think puts it above some of the other cards we could play here. Now, thanks to the Renegade map, we can play as little as 21 lands in this deck and still survive pretty easily, and really, nothing in the deck costs more than 3 mana. So all we ever really need, for the most part, is 3 lands. So it's pretty easy to get to that, and in fact, I think you might even be able to cut a land and still get by pretty easily. And here's the sideboard right here, and it's actually fairly complex for a monocolored budget deck. You know, a lot of 1s and 2 of, so I better get to it here. We've got the 3 copies of Sentinel Totem. This is obviously for Godfar's Gift and other decks that care about their graveyard. We don't give a crap about our graveyard, so let's play some Sentinel Totems for decks that do. And, by the way, this is yet another thing that gets us scries. That's pretty awesome. We got a lot of scries in this deck. But we've also got Universal Solvent in there because this is exactly what it says it is. This is just a solution to just about any problem. Now, the 2 Dramatic Reversal are in there for games where we absolutely have to combo off as fast as possible. This can be important against aggro decks and stuff like that. So I actually don't side this in too many times, but I have noticed how many people want to play this 2 of Dramatic Reversal in the main deck. I actually don't think that's important enough. I think we can relegate this to the sideboard and only use it when we absolutely have to combo off as quickly as possible. But we've also got the Negate in there against control decks. This both counters Settle the Wreckage and counter spells that try to wreck our setting up of the combo. So Negate is important for that reason. You knew you were going to see a few copies in the sideboard there. This shouldn't be too much of a shocker. Another card you probably guessed would be in the sideboard is Sorcerer's Spyglass. If so, congratulations. You were absolutely right, friend. You know, this is an undervalued sideboard card right now against Karns and Teferis and Chandras and all the other Planeswalkers people are playing, but also, you know, Hazaret's activated ability and a host of other things that you actually do have to worry about right now. So Sorcerer's Spyglass is actually a really good card, and you should be playing your sideboard almost no matter what deck you're playing. The only other thing we're running is the 2 copies of River's Rebuke, mostly as a panic button. You know, Powerstone Shard can help us get to this on turn 5 really, really easily, so it's kind of like a tempo-y sort of fumigate. But all we really need is that extra turn or 2 that this will afford us. But just briefly, before we get to the power rankings here, let me talk about some of the upgrades you could make to this deck if you were willing and able to do so. Now, the number one thing people are doing with this deck is adding at least a second, if not a third color. You know, if you add red, you get Saheeli Rai, and this is another way of copying Powerstone Shards, which is actually kind of really important to be able to do, even if she doesn't do anything else. But she's also a way of scrying when you need to, and that's kind of cool. You know, yet another way to scry in this deck. We need that sometimes. So Saheeli will both help you find your combo pieces and become one herself for the most part. So yeah, add red if you can. Do that. There's also Walking Ballista. I briefly touched on this earlier. I may have. You know, this is essentially infinite damage if you have infinite mana. So if you have infinite money, add as many copies of Walking Ballista as you can to the deck. But the other thing people are talking about doing is adding black. You know, possibly going Grixis, but sometimes even just blue-black. So we can have access to black's good early game removal. You know, we get cards like Cast Down and, of course, Fatal Push. These are both really good in the early game. But we also get Battle at the Bridge if we add black. And Battle at the Bridge is great. You know, this can take out stuff like Hazaret and indestructible creatures that we wouldn't normally be able to take out with a whole lot of removal. But it can also gain us a ton ton of life, get us back in the game. Even if we're not, going infinite with Powerstone Shard, but we do have a shard or 2 out, we can generate a ton of mana that way and just get, 6, 8, 10 life off of a battle at the bridge pretty easily, and that would help keep us in the game. So I like the idea of adding the black removal package, but I also really like the idea of Saheeli Rise, so Grixis might be the right plan for this deck. But here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 58, not bad for like a $20 or $25 janky infinite combo deck, It's actually kind of a good time to play this deck, Control is what we're most worried about. They have both Settle the Wreckage and counter spells. So we suck against Control, especially game 1. But game 2, we have some counter spells. We have more counter spells, some ways of making it work. But even the straight up aggro decks, black-red vehicles, they have good starts. But they don't necessarily kill you on turn 5, and this deck can go off on turn 5, turn 6 reliably, and you'd be surprised, especially if you can just land like one Glint Nest Crane, you'd be surprised how often you are still alive on turn 6 against even the fastest aggro decks in this format. Not only that, but there's a bunch of mid-range and combo decks like Godfarer's Gift, and if Godfarer's Gift executes their plan perfectly and gets Gift on turn 4 and gets the best creature in their deck out of the graveyard, you'll still get to turn 6 like every time, and you can beat them with this deck. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best deck in the format, but it's an interesting time to play, janky turn 5 or 6 combo decks. Like, try new perspectives right now. Surprisingly good again. And this deck is no different. It may look janky, but it's actually really easy to get all these pieces together. And once you do, infinite mana is great. It feels really good, by the way. If you want to take this up to F&M, it's a great F&M deck because it feels amazing to, use your $25 super jank infinite combo deck to land a win against like a $500 deck. And I've done it more than once in testing with this thing. And I really want you guys to try this deck out, even if you don't have the $25 to order the deck. And I know it's hard out there. There is totally a world where lots of people can't afford $25 for cardboard. But even if you can, I really recommend that you proxy this deck up or something, whatever pieces you don't already have. Proxy the thing up, goldfish a few games, let it play out, get some reps in. This is a really fun deck to goldfish with, but it can hold its own in a lot of matches against a real opponent. Once you get those reps in, you'll start understanding this combo is in no way as difficult to assemble as it looks like it is on paper. But if you are interested in ordering this deck, as usual, just hit show more in the description box and click that very first link. That'll take you over to TCG Player, my sponsors. Good dudes over there they are, and they also happen to be where you get this deck for the cheapest right now. Don't want you to overpay even for cheap decks, so click the first link in the description, head over to TCG Player, get this thing for as cheap as you can. And do YouTube stuff. Let me run through this as fast as possible. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. Follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. Throw me $1 on Patreon at patreon.com/SBMTG. Link in the doobly-doo down there. And I suppose that I'm tapped out for now. I think I could probably slow it down at this point. I just know nobody cares about the YouTube spiel. But do throw me $1 on Patreon if you can. Would really, really appreciate that. But at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm tapped out. So I'll catch you cats later. Make sure you let me know how you felt about this one in the comments section. And again, there's a wealth of different things you can do with this deck that a lot of people are discussing right now. So make sure you give us your ideas in the comments section too. And I will catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.